The sting of Helena's palm across my cheek burned like fire, but it was nothing compared to the ice-cold satisfaction that would freeze their blood when they realized their biggest mistake, assuming my husband wasn't home. The silence in the house felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I gripped the marble countertop, staring at the morning light filtering through the white curtains. 3 years. 3 years of this torture, and today felt different. Today something was going to change forever. My name is Riley and I should have been happy. I had everything most women dreamed of. A beautiful home with soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. A husband who loved me deeply, financial security that meant I never had to worry about bills or groceries. But happiness felt like a foreign concept when you lived under constant attack, when every moment of peace could be shattered by the sound of a key in the door. The house phone rang, cutting through my thoughts like a blade. I knew who it was before I even looked at the caller ID. Helena Lorenzo, my mother-in-law, though those words felt like poison on my tongue. The woman who had made it her life's mission to destroy my marriage from the moment I said, "I do," to her precious son. "Hello," I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Riley." Her voice dripped with disdain, each syllable pronounced with the precision of someone delivering a death sentence. "We're coming over. Anita and Robert are with me. Miles left this morning, didn't he?" My blood ran cold. Anita. My sister-in-law, Helena's daughter, a 22-year-old college student with a heart made of stone and a mouth that spewed venom. Robert. My brother-in-law, Helena's youngest son, 25 years old and unemployed, living off my husband's generosity while plotting my downfall. "Helena, please, we need to have a conversation." The line went dead. I set the phone down with shaking hands and closed my eyes. Miles had left at dawn for what was supposed to be a 2-week deployment to Germany. Military life meant these separations were routine, but they had become my nightmare. The moment his boots crossed the threshold, his family descended like vultures, circling their prey. 20 minutes. That's how long I had to prepare myself for another round of psychological warfare. 20 minutes to build up walls that they would tear down with surgical precision, using words as weapons and cruelty as currency. I walked through our home, though Helena acted like I was a squatter who had invaded her son's rightful inheritance. The living room was magazine perfect, with its cream-colored sectional sofa and glass coffee table, fresh flowers arranged just so in crystal vases. The dining room gleamed under the soft light of the chandelier Miles had surprised me with for our second anniversary. Every detail was chosen with love, every corner held memories of our life together. But none of it mattered when they were here. The sound of car doors slamming made my stomach clench. Through the front window I watched them approach like a pack of wolves. Helena led the charge, her silver hair perfectly styled, her black designer coat billowing behind her like a dark omen. She was 63 years old but carried herself with the rigid authority of someone who had never heard the word no, and didn't intend to start now. Anita followed, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, her blue eyes, so much like Miles's, cold and calculating. She wore ripped jeans and a cropped sweater that screamed rebellion, funded by her older brother's military salary. Every step she took radiated entitlement and contempt. Robert brought up the rear, lanky and sullen, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. His resemblance to Miles was striking. Same dark hair, same strong jawline. But where Miles's features were softened by kindness and love, Robert's were hardened by resentment and jealousy. The doorbell rang, though they had keys. Of course they had keys. Helena had insisted on keeping a set for emergencies, though the only emergencies that ever occurred were the ones she created. I opened the door and the assault began immediately. Well, Helena said, pushing past me without invitation, her sharp perfume overwhelming the air. "Look at you playing house in my son's home." Anita brushed by next, deliberately bumping my shoulder hard enough to make me stumble. "Still pretending to be the grieving wife, I see. Must be exhausting putting on that act every day." Robert entered last, his eyes scanning the room like he was cataloging everything that would belong to him once they succeeded in destroying my marriage. "Nice to see you're spending Miles's money well," he said, gesturing at the fresh flowers. "Hope you're enjoying it while it lasts." They arranged themselves in my living room like they owned it, Helena claiming the center of the sofa like a queen on her throne, Anita curling up in the armchair with predatory grace, Robert leaning against the mantelpiece with studied casualness. "Sit down, Riley," Helena commanded, patting the space beside her with mock affection. We need to talk. I remained standing, my back pressed against the wall near the entrance to the hallway. From here I could see the stairs leading to the second floor, could glimpse the edge of our bedroom door. Miles was supposed to be thousands of miles away, but something felt different about this morning. Something in the way he had kissed me goodbye, the way his eyes had lingered on mine, the way he had whispered, "I love you," against my hair like he was making a promise. I said, "Sit down," Helena repeated, her voice hardening. I perched on the edge of the love seat as far from them as possible, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. "Good girl," Anita cooed mockingly. "Now let's discuss your future, or should I say your lack of one." The next hour unfolded like a carefully choreographed torture session. They had perfected their technique over 3 years, each playing their role with vicious precision. Helena started with the financial accusations. "Do you think we don't know about your shopping sprees? The credit card bills? You're bleeding my son dry, you little gold digger." "I don't have shopping sprees," I said quietly. "I barely spend anything on myself." "Liar," Robert interjected. Anita saw the receipts. "Designer clothes, expensive makeup, that spa you go to every month." My throat tightened. The spa was therapy. Sessions with Dr. Graham that Miles insisted I attend to help me cope with their abuse. The designer clothes were birthday and anniversary gifts from my husband. The expensive makeup was drugstore foundation to cover the stress-induced breakouts that had plagued me since our wedding day. "Those aren't." "Don't you dare contradict us," Anita snapped, leaning forward like a snake about to strike. "We know exactly what kind of person you are. You trapped Miles with your pathetic sob story about your dead parents, played the helpless little orphan until he felt sorry enough to marry you. The mention of my parents, killed in a car accident when I was 19, hit like a physical blow. My chest tightened, tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. They fed on my pain like vampires, growing stronger with every tear they extracted." Helena's voice became sickeningly sweet, the tone she used when delivering her most devastating attacks. "Darling, we're just trying to help you see reality. Miles is a Lorenzo. We have a certain standing in this community, certain expectations. You come from nothing, you are nothing, and eventually he's going to realize that." "He loves me," I whispered, the words feeling fragile as butterfly wings. Robert laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "Love? Riley, you're a convenience. A warm body to keep his bed occupied while he's home. Do you really think someone like Miles, handsome, successful, from a good family, would choose someone like you if he had better options?" "He chose me," I said, my voice growing stronger. "He married me because he loves me." "He married you because you manipulated him," Anita said, rising from her chair and beginning to pace like a caged predator. "Because you cried pretty tears and made him feel like a hero rescuing the poor little orphan girl. But heroes get tired of their charity cases, Riley. They wake up one day and realize they settled." The room felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing closer with each cruel word. This was their pattern. Isolate me when Miles was gone, chip away at my self-worth until I was raw and bleeding, plant seeds of doubt that would grow like poison in my mind. But today felt different. Today there was something in the air, a tension that hadn't been there before, a sense that the game was about to change. "We have proof," Helena said suddenly, her eyes glittering with malicious triumph. My blood turned to ice. "Proof of what?" Anita pulled out her phone, swiping through it with theatrical slowness. "Proof that you're cheating on my brother." The world tilted. "What? That's impossible. I would never." "Photos," Robert said with gleeful satisfaction. "Very compromising photos of you with another man." "That's not true," I said, standing up so quickly I nearly lost my balance. "I haven't been with anyone else. I love Miles. I would never." "Sit down," Helena barked. "We're not finished." But I couldn't sit. I couldn't breathe. They were escalating, moving beyond psychological torture into outright fabrication. This was the endgame they had been building toward for 3 years, manufacturing evidence to destroy my marriage once and for all. "Show me these supposed photos," I demanded, my voice shaking with rage and terror. Anita smiled, the expression chilling in its cruelty. "Oh, we will. When Miles gets back from Germany, we'll show him everything. The receipts, the photos, All the evidence of what his precious wife has really been doing while he's been risking his life for his country. You're lying, I said desperately. There are no photos because nothing happened. You can't destroy my marriage with lies. Can't we? Helena stood up, her face transformed into something monstrous. Do you really think Miles will believe you over his own family? Over the people who loved him long before you came along to poison his life? The cruelty in her voice, the absolute certainty that she would succeed in destroying everything I held dear, broke something inside me. For 3 years I had endured their attacks in silence, had absorbed their poison without fighting back, had let them tear me apart piece by piece because I believed that love would be enough. That Miles's love would protect me. But looking at their faces, Helena's cold satisfaction, Anita's gleeful malice, Robert's sneering contempt, I realized they would never stop. They would keep escalating, keep pushing, keep torturing me until they succeeded in driving me away or driving me to something desperate. Get out, I said, my voice barely audible. Excuse me. Helena's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. I said get out. My voice grew stronger. This is my home. My husband's home. And I want you to leave. Anita laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your home? Riley, sweetheart, this house belongs to the Lorenzo family. You're just a temporary guest who's overstayed her welcome. The deed is in both our names, I said, lifting my chin. Miles and Riley Lorenzo. I have every right to ask you to leave. Robert pushed off from the mantelpiece, his face darkening. You think you're tough now? Think you can stand up to us because Miles isn't here to see you for what you really are? What am I, Robert? I asked, something reckless and desperate rising in my chest. Tell me what I am. You're a parasite, he said, stepping closer. A leech who attached herself to my brother and has been sucking him dry ever since. You contribute nothing to this family except drama and expense. You want to talk about contributing? I snapped, months of suppressed rage finally finding their voice. What exactly do you contribute, Robert? Besides living rent-free in the apartment Miles pays for? Besides driving the car Miles bought? Besides eating the food Miles's money puts on your table? His face went red. How dare you? And you, Anita, I continued, turning on my sister-in-law with all the fury I had kept locked away. What do you contribute besides your college tuition that Miles pays? Besides your credit cards that Miles covers? Besides your spring break trips and designer bags that come from Miles's military salary? Anita's mouth fell open, then snapped shut like a trap. At least we're family. At least we belong here. I'm his wife, I said, the words ringing with power I had forgotten I possessed. I belong here more than any of you. Helena stood up slowly, her face a mask of rage so pure it was almost beautiful in its terrifying clarity. You little bastard, she said, her voice deadly quiet. You ungrateful, worthless little bitch. She was across the room before I could react, her hand raised, her face twisted with years of accumulated hatred. The slap connected with my cheek with a sound like a gunshot, the force of it spinning me around and sending me stumbling into the wall. Pain exploded across my face, bright and sharp and overwhelming. Stars danced in my vision as I pressed my hand to my burning cheek, tasting blood where my teeth had cut my lip. But it wasn't the physical pain that broke me. It was the realization that she had finally crossed a line there was no coming back from. For 3 years, they had tortured me with words, had made me question my worth and my sanity and my place in my husband's life. But this was assault. This was real, tangible proof of what they were capable of. Anita was laughing, a high, hysterical sound that filled the room like smoke. Oh my God, Mom. You actually hit her. You should have seen your face, Riley. You looked so shocked, like you couldn't believe someone finally put you in your place. Robert was grinning, his earlier anger replaced by delighted satisfaction. About time someone taught her some respect. I straightened up slowly, my hand still pressed to my burning cheek, and for the first time in 3 years I wasn't afraid of them. I was furious. I was beyond furious. I was incandescent with rage, white-hot with the kind of anger that burns away fear and leaves only pure crystalline hatred. You hit me, I said, my voice eerily calm. Helena stepped closer, her face inches from mine, her breath hot against my skin. And I'll do it again if you don't learn your place. You're nothing in this family. Nothing. You're a mistake Miles made that we're going to correct. Anita had stopped laughing, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, the way the air itself seemed to crackle with electricity. But she couldn't resist one final cruelty. She gathered saliva in her mouth and spat directly in my face. The warm wetness hit my cheek and began to slide down toward my jaw. Time seemed to freeze in that moment, the three of them staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to satisfaction to anticipation, waiting to see how I would react to this ultimate humiliation. But I wasn't looking at them anymore. I was looking past them, toward the hallway, toward the staircase, toward the bedroom where a shadow had just moved behind the partially open door. The shadow of a man in military uniform. The shadow of my husband who was supposed to be on a plane to Germany. The shadow of Miles Lorenzo, who had just witnessed his family's true nature in all its ugly, violent glory. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The front door opened with a soft click that somehow managed to fill the entire room, louder than Helena's slap, louder than Anita's laughter, louder than Robert's cruel words. Miles stepped into the hallway, his face a mask of controlled rage that I had never seen before. He was still wearing his dress uniform, the dark blue fabric immaculate, his brass buttons gleaming, his ribbons and insignia catching the light. He looked like what he was. A soldier, a warrior, someone trained to face down enemies and protect what mattered most. And right now what mattered most was me. The silence that followed his appearance was deafening. Helena went white as chalk, her mouth falling open in horror. Anita stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table, her face draining of all color. Robert froze like a deer in headlights, his earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. "Miles," Helena whispered, her voice cracking. "You're supposed to be on a plane to Germany?" Miles's voice was deadly calm, the tone he used when briefing his soldiers before a dangerous mission. The mission was cancelled. Mechanical issues with the transport. I came home to surprise my wife. He walked into the living room with measured steps, each footfall deliberate and controlled. His eyes swept over the scene, me pressed against the wall with a handprint blazing across my cheek and spit still sliding down my face, them arranged around the room like a pack of wolves caught over their kill. What I found instead, he continued, his voice growing colder with each word, was my mother assaulting my wife in my own home. "Miles, sweetheart, you don't understand," Helena said, her usual commanding tone reduced to a desperate plea. She was being disrespectful, she was. "I saw everything," Miles cut her off. "I heard everything. Every word, every accusation, every lie you've been telling about my wife." Anita tried to speak, her voice high and panicked. "Miles, she attacked us first. She was saying horrible things about Robert and me, about how we're leeches and—" "Are you?" Miles asked, turning his full attention to his sister. "Are you leeches?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Anita's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "Because from where I'm standing," Miles continued, his voice growing harder, "you're a 22-year-old college student whose tuition I pay, whose apartment I rent, whose car I bought, whose credit cards I cover. Robert is a 25-year-old man who hasn't held a job longer than 6 months, who lives in housing I provide, who drives a car I purchased, who eats food I buy." Robert tried to interrupt. "Miles, man, we're family. And my mother," Miles went on, ignoring his brother completely, "lives in a house whose mortgage I pay, drives a car I bought, takes vacations funded by my military salary." Helena was shaking now, her composure completely shattered. "You're our son, our brother. It's natural for family to help each other." "Help?" Miles laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call this? Standing in my living room, assaulting my wife, spitting on her, calling her a gold digger while you live off my money?" I hadn't moved from the wall, hadn't wiped the spit from my face, hadn't even touched my burning cheek. I was frozen in disbelief, watching my husband transform into someone I had never seen before. Someone harder, colder, more dangerous than the gentle man who held me at night and whispered poetry in my ear. "Miles, please," Helena begged, tears beginning to stream down her face. "Let me explain. That girl has been poisoning you against us from the beginning. She's manipulative, she's my wife," Miles said, the words cutting through her pleas like a sword. "She's the woman I chose to spend my life with, the woman I promised to love and protect and honor. And I've been failing her for 3 years." He turned to me then, his hard expression softening as he took in my appearance. the red handprint on my cheek, the spit still glistening on my skin, the way I was pressed against the wall like a cornered animal. "Riley," he said, his voice breaking. "God, baby, I'm so sorry." He crossed to me in 3 quick strides, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket and gently wiping Anita's spit from my face. His touch was infinitely tender, his eyes filled with a pain that matched my own. "I should have known," he whispered. "I should have seen. All those times I came home and you seemed different, sadder. All those times you tried to tell me something was wrong and I dismissed it. I failed you." "Miles," I whispered back, my voice barely audible. "You're here now." Behind him, his family was falling apart. Helena was sobbing openly, her perfect composure destroyed. Anita was hyperventilating, her hands shaking as she tried to process what was happening. Robert looked like he was going to be sick. "Miles, please, you have to listen to us," Helena pleaded. "We were trying to protect you. That girl." "Don't," Miles said, turning around with deadly calm. "Don't call her that girl. Her name is Riley. She's my wife. And if you ever speak to her with anything less than complete respect, you will never see me again." The threat hung in the air like a poison cloud. Helena's sobs grew louder. "But we're family," Anita whispered, her voice small and broken. "You were family," Miles corrected. "But family doesn't assault each other. Family doesn't terrorize each other. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and scheme to destroy each other's marriages." He was pacing now, the controlled soldier facade cracking to reveal the furious husband beneath. "Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've put her through? My wife, my gentle, kind, loving wife, has been living in fear in her own home because of you." "We never meant," Robert started. "You never meant what?" Miles snarled. "You never meant to drive her away? You never meant to make her question whether she deserved love? You never meant to make her feel worthless and unwanted and afraid?" The accuracy of his words hit like physical blows. He had seen it all, understood everything, recognized the systematic destruction they had been inflicting on my soul. "Because that's exactly what you did," he continued. "Every visit, every comment, every little dig and insult and helpful suggestion about how she wasn't good enough for me. You've been torturing my wife for 3 years and I was too blind to see it." Helena tried one last desperate gambit. "Miles, darling, we have proof that she's been cheating on you. Anita has photographs." "Stop," Miles said, his voice so cold it could freeze blood. "Just stop. There are no photographs because Riley would never cheat on me. But even if there were, even if she had done something wrong, that would be between my wife and me. It would not give you the right to assault her in her own home." He walked to the front door and opened it wide, the afternoon sunlight streaming in like salvation. "Get out," he said quietly. "Miles," Helena started. "Get out," he roared, his voice filling the house with its fury. "Get out of my home, get away from my wife, and don't ever come back." They moved like sleepwalkers, stumbling toward the door in various states of shock and disbelief. Helena was still crying, mascara streaming down her cheeks in black rivers. Anita kept looking back over her shoulder like she couldn't quite believe this was happening. Robert just walked, his head down, his shoulders slumped in defeat. At the threshold, Helena turned back one last time. "Miles, please. I'm your mother. You can't just cut me out of your life over some girl." The door slammed in her face with such force that the windows rattled. Miles stood there for a moment, his forehead pressed against the door, his breathing heavy. When he turned back to me, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Riley," he said, crossing the room and pulling me into his arms. "My beautiful, strong, incredible wife. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry." I broke then, all the pain and fear and loneliness of 3 years pouring out of me in great gasping sobs. He held me tight, his hands stroking my hair, his voice murmuring apologies and promises and words of love. "They're never coming back," he whispered against my hair. "Never. I promise you that. This is our home, our sanctuary, and no one will ever hurt you here again." But even as I cried in his arms, even as relief flooded through me like warm honey, I knew this was just the beginning. Helena wouldn't give up easily. None of them would. They had too much to lose. Their meal ticket, their lifestyle, their comfortable existence funded by Miles's generosity. They would try to fight back. They would try to win him back. They would try to paint me as the villain who had stolen their golden boy away from his loving family. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the love between Miles and me. They had assumed that blood was thicker than the bonds we had forged in 3 years of marriage, that family loyalty would triumph over romantic love. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, Miles was on the phone before the sun fully rose. I lay in bed watching him pace by the window in his boxer shorts and an old army t-shirt, his voice crisp and professional as he made call after call. Yes, I need to speak to the property management company. Lorenzo account. No, I'm terminating the lease agreement on the apartment on Oak Street, effective immediately. I could hear the surprise in the woman's voice on the other end, tinny through the phone speaker. Sir, that lease isn't up for renewal for another 8 months. There will be substantial penalties. I understand. Send me the paperwork. He hung up and immediately dialed another number. Bank of America? Yes, this is Major Miles Lorenzo. I need to close several accounts and cancel some credit cards. Call by call, he was methodically dismantling the financial support system that had kept his family afloat for years. The apartment Robert lived in rent-free. Gone. The credit cards Anita used for her shopping sprees. Cancelled. The car payments, the insurance premiums, the monthly allowances that had kept Helena living in comfort. All of it ended with the ruthless efficiency of a military operation. I slipped out of bed and wrapped myself in my silk robe, padding downstairs to make coffee. My cheeks still ached from Helena's slap, the handprint having darkened to a deep purple bruise overnight, but there was a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. For the first time in 3 years I felt free. The coffee was just finishing brewing when Miles came downstairs, his phone finally silent. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of my head. How are you feeling? He asked softly. Like I can breathe again, I said, turning in his arms to face him. How are you feeling? His jaw tightened. Angry. At them for what they did to you. At myself for letting it happen. You didn't know. I should have known, he said firmly. You're my wife. It's my job to protect you and I failed. But that stops now. His phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. Helena? I asked. He nodded, showing me the screen. Miles, please call me. We need to talk. I know you're upset, but you can't throw away 28 years of family over a misunderstanding. I'm your mother. I love you. More messages followed in rapid succession. Please don't do this. We're sorry. We'll apologize to Riley. You can't cut off Robert's apartment. He has nowhere else to go. Anita's crying. You're breaking your sister's heart. Call me. Please just call me. Miles deleted each message without reading it fully, his face set like stone. There will be more, I said quietly. They won't give up easily. I know, he said. But I meant what I said yesterday. They're never coming back into our lives. As if summoned by his words, the doorbell rang. We both froze, looking at each other. They wouldn't, I whispered. Miles's expression was grim. They would. We moved to the front window and peered through the blinds. Helena's Mercedes was parked in our driveway, and all 3 of them stood on our front porch. Helena was dressed in a black suit that made her look like she was attending a funeral, her face pale and drawn. Anita clutched a bouquet of flowers. My favorite daisies, which she had probably gotten from the grocery store. Robert stood behind them, looking uncomfortable and defeated. They brought flowers, I said incredulously. They think flowers are going to fix this. Miles was already walking toward the door, but I caught his arm. Don't, I said. Don't open it. Don't give them the chance to hurt us more. But the doorbell kept ringing, followed by urgent knocking. Miles. Helena's voice was muffled through the door but clearly audible. Please, son, open the door. We need to talk. We're so sorry. Anita called out. Riley, please, we want to apologize. We brought flowers. Robert added, as if that explained everything. Miles looked at me, his eyes asking a silent question. I took a deep breath and nodded. Let them say their piece, I said. Let them hang themselves with their own words. He opened the door but didn't invite them in, standing in the doorway like a barrier they couldn't cross. You have 2 minutes, he said coldly. Helena immediately began crying again, fresh tears streaming down her already red-rimmed eyes. Oh, Miles, thank God. I was so afraid you wouldn't speak to us ever again. I'm not speaking to you now, Miles said. I'm listening. There's a difference. Anita thrust the flowers forward desperately. These are for Riley. Daisy's her favorite. We remembered. I stayed well back from the door, close to the staircase where I could retreat if necessary. How do you know daisies are my favorite? You said so once, Anita stammered. At dinner. Remember? You said they reminded you of your mother. My blood chilled. I had mentioned that exactly once at a family dinner 2 years ago when Helena had criticized the cheap flowers Miles had brought me. I had defended them by saying daisies were my favorite because my mother used to pick them with me when I was little. Helena had rolled her eyes and made a comment about simple tastes for simple people. Now they were using that memory, one of my most precious connections to my dead mother, as ammunition in their manipulation campaign. We're sorry, Helena said, her voice breaking. We're so sorry. What happened yesterday was inexcusable. I should never have struck you, Riley. And Anita's spitting on you was. She shook her head. We were wrong. Completely wrong. Robert stepped forward. We know we messed up. We know we hurt you both. But we're family. We can work through this. Work through assault? Miles asked quietly. Work through 3 years of systematic emotional abuse? It wasn't abuse, Anita protested. We were protecting you. We thought she was using you for your money and you what? Miles's voice was deadly calm. You decided to torture my wife to drive her away? You decided to make her life miserable in her own home? You decided that your suspicions gave you the right to treat her like garbage? Helena was sobbing openly now. We love you, Miles. Everything we did because we love you. That isn't love, I said, my voice carrying clearly from across the room. Love doesn't slap. Love doesn't spit. Love doesn't try to destroy someone's marriage. Anita turned to me with desperate eyes. Riley, please. You have to understand. We were scared of losing Miles. He came into our lives and suddenly he was different, distant. We felt like we were losing our brother, our son. So you decided to make me the enemy, I said. Instead of getting to know me, instead of welcoming me into the family, you decided I was a threat to be eliminated. Yes, Helena said, surprising me with her honesty. Yes, that's exactly what we did. And we were wrong. We can see that now. But there was something in her tone, something calculated and rehearsed, that made me doubt her sincerity. We want to make it right, Robert said. We want to be a real family. All of us together. What does that look like? Miles asked. Making it right? Helena brightened, sensing an opening. We could go to family therapy. All of us. We could work through our issues with a professional. And in the meantime we could start fresh. Clean slate. And my apartment? Robert asked hopefully. And Anita's credit cards? We know you were upset yesterday, but surely you don't want us to be homeless or unable to finish college. There was the real reason for this performance. Not genuine remorse for their actions, but fear of losing their financial support. I saw the moment Miles realized it too, the way his expression shifted from cautious listening to cold understanding. Ah, he said softly. There it is. The real reason you're here. Helena's face flushed. That's not. We're here because we love you. You're here because I canceled Robert's lease and Anita's credit cards, Miles said with brutal honesty. You're here because the money stopped flowing. That's not fair, Anita protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Miles stepped forward and all 3 of them involuntarily stepped back. Let me ask you something. In the 3 years since Riley and I got married, how many times have you called just to check on us? How many times have you visited without needing something? How many times have you asked about Riley's well-being? The silence stretched like a taut wire. I'll answer for you, Miles continued. 0. Not once. Every phone call was about money. Robert needing help with rent. Anita needing her credit limit increased, Mom needing help with the mortgage. Every visit was an attack on my wife disguised as family time. Robert's face was red with anger and shame. We're your family. Of course we come to you when we need help. But you don't come to me when you don't need help, Miles pointed out. You don't call to congratulate Riley when she gets promoted at work. You don't ask how she's doing when she's sick. You don't remember her birthday or our anniversary or any of the milestones that matter to people who actually care about each other. Anita was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. We can change. We can be better. You had 3 years to be better, I said, finding my voice again. 3 years to get to know me, to build a relationship with me, to treat me like family. Instead, you spent 3 years trying to destroy me. Helena took a shaky step forward. Riley, darling, I know we made mistakes. Don't call me darling, I said sharply. Yesterday you called me a gold digger, a parasite, a mistake. You slapped me in my own home. You don't get to call me darling. Her face crumpled. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. No, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. You said things you absolutely meant. Things you've been thinking for 3 years. The only difference is that yesterday you finally said them out loud. Miles was watching me with something like pride in his eyes, seeing me stand up for myself in a way I never had before. Here's what's going to happen, he said, turning back to his family. Nothing changes. Robert, your lease is terminated. Anita, your credit cards are canceled. Mom, your mortgage is your own responsibility now. Miles, please, Helena started. I'm not finished, he cut her off. You want to make things right? You want to prove this is about love and not money? Then do it without my financial support. Show me that you can be a family without being dependent on me. Robert's face went white. I can't afford rent on my own. I don't have a job that pays enough. Then get a better job, Miles said without sympathy. Or get roommates. Or move back in with Mom. Figure it out. But I need that apartment for job interviews. Robert protested. How am I supposed to get a good job if I'm homeless? The same way millions of other people do it, Miles replied. With hard work and determination. Anita was hyperventilating. I can't pay for college without help. I'll have to drop out. I'll have to get student loans. Do you want me to graduate with debt? I graduated with debt, Miles said calmly. It motivated me to work harder, to make better choices, to value my education instead of taking it for granted. Helena was looking between her children with growing desperation. Miles, you can't do this to them. They're young, they need guidance, they need support. They need to grow up, Miles said firmly. They need to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like garbage and expect to be rewarded for it. I watched the three of them absorb this reality, saw the moment when they realized their tears and apologies weren't going to work, when they understood that the comfortable life they had been living at Miles's expense was truly over. Robert was the first to snap. This is all your fault, he snarled, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You poisoned him against us. You turned our brother into someone we don't even recognize. I didn't have to turn him into anything, I said quietly. I just had to love him. Really love him, not use him. We love him. Anita screamed. We've loved him his whole life. You love his money, I corrected. You love what he can do for you. But you don't love him. Helena made one last desperate attempt. Miles, I carried you in my womb for 9 months. I raised you, I sacrificed for you, I gave you everything. Doesn't that mean anything? Miles's expression softened slightly, and for a moment I thought she might have found the right words to reach him. But then he shook his head. It means everything, Mom. Which is why this hurts so much. You gave me life, you raised me to be a good man, you taught me right from wrong. And then you used all of that history, all of that love, to justify treating my wife like an enemy. His voice broke slightly. You made me choose between you and her. And maybe if you had been kinder, maybe if you had tried to build a relationship with her instead of tearing her down, I wouldn't have had to choose at all. Helena's face went ashen as the full implications hit her. Choose? Miles, you don't have to choose. I already chose, he said quietly. I chose her the day I married her. I just forgot that for a while, and I let you make her pay for my confusion. He began to close the door, but Robert lunged forward, desperation making him reckless. Wait. What about Thanksgiving? Christmas? Family traditions? You can't just throw away 28 years of family. You threw it away, Miles said sadly. When you decided that hurting Riley was acceptable. When you decided that your comfort was more important than her well-being. You threw away our family, not me. The door closed with a soft click, followed immediately by frantic pounding and muffled shouts. Miles, please, don't do this. We're sorry. We're really sorry. Open the door. We're your family. We stood in our foyer listening to them rage and plead outside our home, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years. Complete safety. They'll keep trying, I said after their voices finally faded and we heard the car drive away. I know, Miles replied, pulling me into his arms. But it doesn't matter. We're moving. I looked up at him in surprise. Moving? I've been thinking about it all night, he said. This house has too many bad memories for you now. Too many places where they hurt you. I want us to start fresh, somewhere they can't find us, somewhere you can feel safe. Tears filled my eyes. You would do that? Leave this house. This house is just walls and windows, he said, cupping my face gently. Home is wherever you are. 6 weeks later, we were unpacking boxes in our new home 3 states away. A cozy colonial with a wraparound porch and a garden that I immediately fell in love with. Miles had requested a transfer to a base closer to the East Coast, and his reputation had preceded him. The new assignment came through in record time. I was arranging books on the living room shelves when my phone rang. The number was strange, but I answered anyway. Hello. Silence for a moment, then Helena's voice, smaller and more fragile than I had ever heard it. Riley? Please don't hang up. I should have hung up immediately. Should have blocked the number and forgotten she existed. But there was something in her tone that made me pause. What do you want, Helena? She took a shaky breath. I lost the house. I sank onto the couch, the book I had been holding falling to the floor. What? I couldn't make the mortgage payments without Miles's help. The bank foreclosed last week. I'm staying in a motel. Despite everything she had done to me, I felt a pang of sympathy. Helena, I'm sorry to hear that, but... Anita had to drop out of college, she continued, her voice breaking. She's working at a diner now, trying to save money for community college. And Robert was evicted. He's been sleeping on friends' couches. Each piece of information hit like a small weight in my chest. I had wanted them to face consequences for their actions, but hearing about their actual suffering made me feel hollow rather than vindicated. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because I need you to ask Miles to help us, she said, and there it was, the real reason for the call. I know he won't take my calls. I know he's blocked all of us. But he might listen to you. Helena. Please, she begged, all pretense of dignity abandoned. I'm 63 years old and living in a motel room that smells like cigarettes and despair. Anita is 22 and her hands are cracked from washing dishes 12 hours a day. Robert is sleeping in his car some nights. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of their desperation through the phone line. We were wrong, Helena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. So wrong about everything. About you, about what kind of person you are, about what you meant to Miles. We destroyed our family because of jealousy and fear and stupidity. Yes, you did, I said quietly. But you could fix it, she said, hope creeping into her voice. You could talk to Miles, convince him to give us another chance. You're his wife. He loves you. He'll listen to you. I sat in silence for a long moment, processing her words, feeling the strange power of holding their fate in my hands. You know what's funny? I finally said. What? For 3 years you told me I was a gold digger. You accused me of using Miles for his money, of being a parasite who contributed nothing to the relationship. But now you want me to use my influence with him to get your money back. Helena was quiet. You're asking me to do exactly what you always accused me of doing. Manipulate my husband for financial gain. The only difference is that you want the money to go to you instead of me. That's not the same thing, Helena said weakly. Isn't it? I asked. You want me to use my relationship with Miles to benefit you financially. How is that different from what you claimed I was doing? She had no answer. Here's the truth, Helena, I continued. I never wanted Miles's money. I fell in love with a man who happened to be successful, but I would have loved him just as much if he was a teacher or a mechanic or worked at a grocery store. I married him because he made me laugh, because he held me when I cried, because he looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world. My voice grew stronger. But you never saw that. You never saw how he smiled when he talked about me, or how gently he touched my face when he thought no one was looking, or how he would get up early to make me coffee just the way I liked it. All you saw was a woman who didn't fit your image of what his wife should be. We know that now, Helena whispered. We can see it now. No, you can't, I said sadly. You still don't understand. You're not calling because you've had some great revelation about love or family or how badly you treated me. You're calling because you're broke and desperate and you need money. Riley, please. If Miles had never cut you off, if you were still living comfortably in your house with Robert in his apartment and Anita in her sorority, would you be calling me now? Would you be apologizing and admitting you were wrong? The silence stretched so long I wondered if she had hung up. No, she finally whispered. Probably not. Thank you for your honesty, I said. But that's exactly why I can't help you. So you're going to let us suffer? You're going to let Robert live in his car and Anita work herself to death in a diner and me rot in a motel room? I'm not letting you do anything, I said firmly. Your choices led you to where you are now. Your decision to treat me like an enemy, to try to destroy my marriage, to prioritize your comfort over my well-being. Those choices have consequences. We're family, she said desperately. No, I said quietly. You made it very clear that I was never family to you. I was an intruder, a mistake, a problem to be solved. And now that you need something from me, suddenly I'm supposed to be family? Helena was crying openly now. I know we don't deserve your help. I know we were cruel and horrible and wrong about everything. But please, Riley. Please don't let pride and anger destroy what's left of this family. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just not fixing what you broke. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. There's something else, she said finally. What? Robert lost his job at the warehouse. Not because of the eviction, because of Miles. My blood chilled. What do you mean? Miles called Robert's boss. Told him what Robert had done, how he had treated you. The boss said he didn't want that kind of person working for him. I felt like the world had tilted sideways. Miles hadn't told me he had done that. Are you sure? I asked. Robert's boss told him directly. Said Major Lorenzo had called and explained the situation. Said he thought the company should know what kind of character Robert really had. A mixture of emotions flooded through me. Shock that Miles had gone that far, satisfaction that Robert was facing real consequences, and concern that my husband was carrying out revenge I didn't even know about. I have to go, I said. Riley, wait. I hung up. Miles came home an hour later to find me sitting at our kitchen table staring at my phone. Hey beautiful, he said, leaning down to kiss the top of my head. How was your day? Get more unpacking done. Did you call Robert's boss? I asked without preamble. He froze, his lips still pressed against my hair. Slowly he straightened up, his expression guarded. Helena called you. Answer the question, I said. Did you call Robert's boss? He was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out the chair next to me and sat down. Yes, he said quietly. I did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you would try to talk me out of it, he said. Because despite everything they did to you, you still have a kind heart, and I knew you wouldn't want me to destroy his career. He was right and we both knew it. Miles, getting him fired. He got himself fired, Miles interrupted. I simply told his boss the truth about what kind of person Robert is. His boss made the decision based on that information. But you knew what would happen. You knew he would be fired. Yes, Miles said without apology. I knew and I did it anyway. I stared at him, seeing a hardness in his eyes that reminded me of the day he had thrown his family out of our house. What else did you do? I asked quietly. He looked down at his hands. Anita's college found out why her tuition payments stopped. When they called to verify her financial aid status, I told them about her behavior toward you. They revoked her admission. My mouth fell open. Miles. And I called the property management company that Helena was trying to rent from. Made sure they knew she had been evicted for non-payment. You made sure she couldn't find anywhere to live, I said, barely able to process what I was hearing. I made sure she faced consequences for her actions, he corrected. Just like Anita and Robert are facing consequences. I stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. They're desperate, I said. Helena is living in a motel. Anita is working in a diner. Robert is sleeping in his car. Good, Miles said coldly. Maybe now they understand what it feels like to have your security stripped away, to feel helpless and afraid. This isn't you, I said, spinning around to face him. This isn't the man I married. You're kind and generous and forgiving. You don't destroy people. I don't destroy innocent people, he said, standing up to face me. But they're not innocent, Riley. They tortured you for 3 years. They made you question your worth, made you afraid in your own home, made you feel unwanted and unloved. His voice grew harder. They slapped you. They spat on you. They tried to destroy our marriage with lies and manipulation. So no, I don't feel sorry for them. I feel like justice is finally being served. I stared at him, seeing the man I loved transformed by anger and protectiveness into someone I barely recognized. What happens now? I asked quietly. How far does this go? As far as it needs to, he said. Until they truly understand the pain they caused you. Until they know what it feels like to be powerless and afraid and desperate. And then what? They understand, and then what? Do we all live happily ever after? Do we become a family again? Miles was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he finally admitted. Maybe. Or maybe some things are too broken to fix. That night, I lay awake listening to Miles breathe beside me, thinking about Helena's desperate voice on the phone, about Anita's cracked hands from washing dishes, about Robert sleeping in his car. I had wanted them to face consequences for their actions. I had wanted them to understand what they had put me through. But seeing my gentle husband transform into an instrument of methodical revenge was almost as frightening as their original abuse had been. The next morning I made a decision. I called Helena back. Riley. Her voice was thick with sleep and hope. Oh, thank God. I knew you would. I'm not calling to help you, I interrupted. I'm calling to give you some advice. The hope died out of her voice. Oh. Stop calling me. Stop trying to reach Miles. Stop looking for ways around the consequences of your actions. But Riley. I'm not finished, I said firmly. You want to know how to fix this? How to maybe, possibly, someday have a relationship with your son again? Yes, she whispered. Prove that you've changed. Not to get your money back, not to get your house back, not to get anything back. Prove that you've become better people because it's the right thing to do. How? Get jobs. All of you. Work hard, pay your own way, build your own lives without depending on Miles's money. Show him that you can be proud of who you are instead of just taking pride in what he provides. Helena was quiet. And more importantly, I continued, learn to genuinely care about other people. Volunteer at a shelter. Help people who are struggling. Become the kind of people who would never dream of abusing someone the way you abused me. And if we do all that, if we change, then maybe, in a few years when Miles is ready, when I'm ready, when we can trust that you've really changed and not just pretending to get what you want, maybe we can try to build something new. A few years. Helena's voice cracked. Or never, I said honestly. That's the reality, Helena. You might have lost us forever. And if that's the case, you'll have to find a way to live with it. I hung up before she could respond. 2 years later we received a letter. Not a phone call, not a desperate plea, but a simple handwritten letter addressed to both Miles and me. Inside was a single photograph. Anita in nursing scrubs, standing next to Robert in a mechanic's uniform, with Helena between them wearing the simple clothes of someone who worked for a living. They were all smiling, but it was different from the entitled, comfortable smiles I remembered. These smiles looked earned. The letter was brief. Miles and Riley, we don't expect forgiveness. We don't expect anything. We just wanted you to know that we're trying to become better people. Anita graduated from nursing school last month. Robert has been working at the same auto shop for 18 months and was just promoted to assistant manager. I've been cleaning offices at night and volunteering at a women's shelter during the day. We think about you both every day. We hope you're happy. Love, Helena, Anita, and Robert. Miles read the letter twice, then handed it to me without comment. What do you think? I asked. I think, he said slowly, that maybe some people can change. Given enough time and enough consequences. Do you want to see them? He was quiet for a long time. Someday maybe. When I'm ready. When you're ready. When we can trust that this isn't just another performance. I nodded, understanding completely. We kept the letter, but we didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But for the first time in years, the possibility of forgiveness didn't seem impossible. Just distant. Very distant. And that was enough for now. Our new house was filled with laughter and love and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you're safe. Miles had returned to the gentle, kind man I had fallen in love with, though there was a strength in him now that hadn't been there before. The strength of someone who had learned the difference between being kind and being a doormat. We built a life together that was entirely our own, free from the poisonous influence of people who had mistaken fear for love and control for family. And in the quiet moments of our peaceful evenings, when Miles held me close and whispered that he loved me, I knew that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let them destroy you. Sometimes it's building something so beautiful, so strong, so full of genuine love that their hatred can't touch it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and create a life so much better than what they tried to give you that their loss becomes undeniable. We had won not by destroying them but by refusing to be destroyed. And that victory, quiet and private and unshakable, was more satisfying than any revenge could ever be.